Hey, Lisa Curly Malice here, and welcome to the 25th Hour podcast. Today's a special Ask Me Anything Q&A edition. So I have three different topics, questions that I want to answer for you. And so we're going to jump right into the first one. The first one is, would you please give me some tips and tricks for how to use Asana? And this is from Susan R. So here's a couple things that I want to share about using Asana or any type of project management software. The first thing is think it out on paper first. What it is to track. Think through the steps on paper. I actually even like to use Post-it notes so that I can think it out and then rearrange things until I get them in the order I want. Once I have an order I feel pretty set with, then I pop it into Asana. Now, you may want to skip this step, and that's okay, because the thing about Asana specifically, because that's what I use, is that you can drag things around and move them. I just like using the Post-it note piece. Then commit to it. If you're using a project management software, commit to it. Don't keep a to-do list in your calendar and another one on a piece of paper on the wall and another one here and another one there. The reason that you're using a project management system is so that you can keep everything in one place. So commit to that and use it. Also, once you create the process, and I'll use right now our podcast, this podcast as an example. I created the process, did a couple episodes, thought it through, streamlined it, then started to delegate pieces out to my VA, and then delegated some pieces out to someone who does the video editing. And every time we got another hand involved, it was time to go back in, streamline the process, make sure things are working. So one of the nice things about using the project management software is you have the process sitting right there in front of you. You want to make sure that you revisit those periodically to make sure that they are as streamlined as possible. And then finally, you want to make sure that you can recreate the template. So for example, on the podcast, every episode has its own project. And I just create a template and then recreate it for each project. You could do that. So here's some of the things we use it for. Monthly social media, just recreate the template. E-blast, recreate the template. Every time I do a presentation or a workshop, we have different templates. We just recreate it. And we already have who's assigned to it, target dates for when things need to be dated, all of those pieces. So when you're using Asana, you want, or any project management software, use it for everything. So when we have a team meeting coming up, we have a task open and people can pop in their ideas for what we may want to discuss at the meeting. If there are someday items, so like right now I have this automation wish list. Every time I think of something that I would like to figure out if it could be automated or streamlined or fixed, like right now I'm having problems with my email. I just put it in there and then assign it to someone else. So everything doesn't have to be its own project. It could just be different tasks. So if you want other tips or tricks on Asana or other project management software, feel free to reach out. I can hook you into someone who is a master at it. I'm giving you the broad strokes, upper level 50,000 foot view of it. The idea is that you are not recreating the wheel all the time. You're able to find things, don't miss deadlines because everything is dated for you. And also the biggest thing is that whole tag your it piece. Projects don't drop when they move from one person to the next because you have that trigger sitting there in Asana. Now, for the next question, conflicting priorities. This question comes to us from Suzy L. And what she says is, I'm not really sure what to do when I have conflicting priorities. And what I mean by that is I'm trying to build my business, but I'm also trying to make sure that I hold boundaries so that I have family time. So we could think of this as that work-life balance thing, but you could think of it as any types of conflicting priorities. I'm trying to show people that I care about them, and I'm also trying to make sure that I follow COVID safety protocols. Like those two things could feel like they're at loggerheads, but there's a way to make sure that you can do that safely and do both. So sorry, let me walk that back. We want to think of this as an and, not an or. So in the case of Suzy L, she says, I'm trying to build my business, yet I'm also finding that I'm trying to hold my boundaries and those things come at loggerheads. So instead of thinking it as I can either build my business or hold my boundaries and spend more time with my family, think of it, how can I build my business and also hold my boundaries with family? So the first thing that I want to share with you is that you teach people how to treat you. So when it comes to boundaries, you want to make sure that you explain them and also hold them, and people will reach them. But what's happened is we've gotten squishy and we've let something slide in here and something slide in here. Now, all of a sudden, people think that's the norm because that's how we've taught them to treat us. And so they're pushing on our boundaries and we're letting them. So instead, think through what's my boundary and how do I communicate that clearly? When it comes to that conflicting priority of I'm trying to build my business and I'm trying to hold boundaries with family, if you relax the boundary piece now as you're building your business, so if you fall in that either or place, I'm going to build my business, therefore I can't hold my boundaries, that means that you will never have boundaries. You'll continue not to have boundaries even as your business grows and flourishes. So instead, let's look back at that. How can we make it an and? How can you build your business and have time for family? Well, look at ways to be more efficient. Look at where can you bring in automation potentially so that it saves you time in your workday so that you have more time for family. Maybe it's a virtual reception desk. So sometimes the thought is I have to respond to every email that very quickly, otherwise they'll go to another service provider. Or I have to pick the phone up even if it's outside of regular hours, because if they're calling now, they have a need now, and I'll lose them. And that means putting my family aside. Instead, what you can do is maybe hire a virtual reception desk that only works when the phone rings, or have someone who's on your admin staff be on call when someone has one night a week or outside of business hours, or have a message that says, these are normal office hours. We guarantee you will receive a phone call back within X time. So maybe your hours are 8 to 5 and you can say our normal hours are 8 to 5. Someone calls in at 7:30. You can say, we guarantee that you will receive a call back no later than 8:30 a.m. Give yourself, a half hour to get in the office or whatever. Maybe there's a automatic email that goes out saying, thank you for your interest. Click here to leave us a voice message. So that way when it still feels a little more personal. Or here are some of the common questions that we receive. That's an automatic message out. And maybe these will work for you. You can have conflicting priorities. And you can, here's your and you can figure out how to work around those so that it's an and situation, not an or. You can build your business or another service arm of your business and still spend time with family. If we look at the other conflicting priority, how do you have personal relations and be safe with COVID? Well, I know people are zoomed out, but it is possible to make connections, phone calls, picnic in the park. I'm shooting this right now. It's December. It's like 28 degrees outside. I still can meet friends out a park, socially distanced, safe, and take a walk. So it is possible. You just want to think through how can we make it an and instead of an either or situation. Third question we have coming in is from Gail P. And Gail P says, will you please help? I'm drowning trying to run my business and teach virtual school. And I know a lot of you are in this challenge right now. It is hard work to take what was already a full-time or more than full-time job running your business and then add on top of that being the primary educational instruction specialist. Even if they are in class fairly consistent and regular, you still have them at home. So what can you do? First thing is to think through, if you're working an 8-hour day, you're probably only getting about 3 hours of really solid focused time. And the rest of the time you're spending, uh, responding to emergent priorities or doing uh, less important work, stuff that still needs to get done, but isn't super, super important. So, but there's about 3 hours probably each day where you can really dig in and do those most important things and have the energy and the attention and the focus that you need to do that. Block that time out. Figure out where can you get those 3 hours from? How can you create an experience where you are uninterrupted and can dig in and focus and get the most important things done for your business? And that can look a lot of different ways. You can be creative. Figure out a swap where someone else is monitoring the kids learning while you're 3 hours and you're monitoring someone else's, or maybe you have a partner in the home that can say, look, I'll be responsible for the kids from 6 in the morning until 9. You hunker down and do the things you need to do. And then flip flop roles so that from 9 to noon, someone else is. And you also have the opportunity right now to figure out how to delegate some of those things. Like if you could only work 3 hours today, what would be the most important things that you need to do? And then how can you get those other things off your plate to make it easier? When we talk about creating that 3-hour window, the 3-hour block for you to focus uninterrupted on your business, ideally, that would be in your high peak biological prime time, the time when you most naturally are already at your high focus and high energy. That may or may not be accurate or reasonable for you. Like you may say, look, the only time that I can possibly get is from 5 to 8 in the morning. Great, then take it from 5 to 8 in the morning and focus just on those things that need to be, and then release the guilt. And be there for your homeschoolers or your virtual schoolers the rest of the day. It is exhausting to feel like you need to be working and you're doing homeschool and you're doing homeschool and you're working feeling, oh my goodness, it's exhausting to be thinking that you should be working when you're homeschooling and thinking that you should be homeschooling when you're working. That's what I'm trying to say. And so set up some structure, set up some boundaries, and decide, okay, here's how I'm going to keep it, and then let the guilt go. So there's our first 3 Ask Me Anything questions. And I would love to answer your questions. Send them in. I will share. The more detailed your question is, the more detailed I can get into the answer and really dig into what you have. So by all means, you want to go to hi at impactivestrategies.com. That's the best place to send your questions. And then I can put them in the next Ask Me Anything Q&A session. One of the best ways that you can work less but still achieve more is to be a master at delegating. And I'm super excited to announce that our next Delegate Like a Pro Master Series is starting. To find out more or to be notified when the next one opens, go to delegatelakeapro.com.